Greetings, all. My name is Nolan Bushnell, and I'm kind of known for being the founder of Atari and then later on Chuck E. Cheese and now ExoDexa. And what we're doing is trying to change education and using gamification as the tool. Dr. Leah Hanes, who is my co-author on the book Shaping the Future of Education, is a PhD in education. So I'm a guy with a lot of opinions, but she actually has rigor. And so I think the combination has done some wonderful things. Do you want to comment on that, Leah?
Well, I'll tell you that writing the book with you was such a treat. And it started off, I don't know if I've ever even told you this, Nolan, but when I first started writing, and I was making notes in the margins and comments, and I didn't hear from you, and I thought, oh wow, he hates what I'm doing and just doesn't know how to tell me. And then, of course, Nancy and Brent both told me, you know what, he's really busy on something else and he hasn't gotten back to that yet. So that's the whole, I thought you just didn't like what I was doing. And once we got going with the book, I found it refreshing because basically, just so for our viewers and listeners, Nolan had written 70 or 80 pages about education that I was then looking at and commenting on as an educator and giving my impression and gathering research to either back up my argument. And I was, the other thing that I was a little nervous about was, you know, what if I disagree vehemently with Nolan? I mean, is he going to, and then I realized, hey, he's at 8 kids. He's used to people disagreeing with him. So I thought it would be a good experience. And indeed, it was an amazing experience. I think the one regret I have is that AI wasn't really a conversation yet when we were working on the book. It came up, you know, we wrote the book at the beginning of the pandemic, and it came up at the end of the pandemic. So that's the one missing element for me.
You know, it's interesting. People have been commenting to me on the book, and what it was a little bit surprising to me, and I'd actually like your opinions on this. They've all universally said they like the stories. And
Right.
For those of you who haven't read the book yet, I made up stories about kids who prosper in this new kind of learning environment, and teachers how they prosper in this new kind of learning, and they're just totally made up, but they sound real, don't they?
They do. They do. And we do identify that they're made up, that they are our user stories, as you would in the game world. When you're developing a new game, you have your, and I don't remember the terminology, but I'm not from the game side of things, but that you have the composite of what you think your end user will want and how they'll use the material. So yeah, the other thing that I've been really surprised about in the response to the book is the like passionate level of engagement, like offering the founder circle and people who are just want to be engaged in the conversation. I don't think that we at ExoDexa are going to fix the whole thing. I think we at ExoDexa are going to be part of a community that fixes the whole thing. And we may be leading the community and we may have a significant stake in the community, but it will take people all over the world from every walk of life to make this happen, because education is in need of not just a few tweaks here and there. It's in need of some major, major overhaul. Too many kids don't make it in this system.
Yeah, I call it a meat axe approach. Just tear it all down.
Well, actually, I was talking to a past LAUSD board member once about a project that they wanted to explore. And he said, if you just thought about, like, if you could pick up the school, turn it upside down and just shake everything out of it, then just work with what's left. And I thought that's probably a really good approach. Like, let's take a look at
Well,
everything that is working and use keep that and get rid of the rest.
you know, somebody who's turning into one of my absolute favorite people is Renee, who's on our board.
Right.
And she was the principal at Compton High and Beverly Hills High. And she is such a breath of fresh air and no nonsense, down to your thinking. I say, man, what a real fundamental talent that, and to have her on board with this just gives me a big smile on my face. You know,
We need to bring her on the podcast soon so that the rest can, because I'm not at
I
all surprised that you feel that way about her. I think that everyone who gets to know her will feel that way about her. She's really quite humble, but absolutely brilliant educator, and has a sense of, we were talking on a different podcast about the importance of business school, of understanding business in whatever walk of
yeah.
life. That's the one area that I think education is lacking. And that's what Renee brings to the table, is that she spent quite a few years at IBM in the business community before she went back to school and became an educator. So she brings with her a very different perspective. And, we work in so many schools with the foundation that I feel like all of them would benefit from at least a year of business school education. How you handle correspondence, how long you take to get back to someone, all of those little things that really add up.
Well, also, don't forget you had another career in media,
I did.
and before you got into education. And why don't you talk a little bit about that? What were some of your learnings in the media world that are appropriate for education?
That's a really good question, Nolan. I think probably the very early part of, I produced a television series about women in unusual jobs, and it was the mid 80s when I did that, 1980s. And the learning for me in that was, I expected all of these women to have had, like, here's my plan, here's what I'm going to do, and then do it. And then I was interviewing them at the other end of that program where they were successful. And the truth is, all but one, and then my first year, 13 stories, 13 different women, all but one got to where they are by the way they adjusted after each failure. After each devastating experience, either a divorce or a death or some health issue. And this was what they did to cope and move forward. And that's where their success was found. There was only one woman who had decided when she was a teenager she was going to have a jewelry business, and she had a jewelry business. Everybody else, it was just, there was one woman I interviewed who had 10 children because she was married, had 3 children, and her husband died in the war. She remarried a fellow who had a little 2-man machine shop in the backyard, and he had 2 children, she had the 3, they had 3 together. He passed away, had a heart attack, and she inherited the 2-man machine shop. She ended up marrying again, and he had children. So she had 10, and they were all teenagers at the same time. She had
Holy
taken
cow!
that 2-man machine shop and turned it into, when I interviewed her, a $40 million a year ball bearing company. I mean, it was, and she said, I invented the in and out board because I needed to know where the kids were. They all had to sign the blackboard with the phone number of where they were going to be and what time they would be home. I was like, the message there that really impacted my career was, make whatever plans you want to make, but be prepared to adjust. Be prepared to deal with changes as they come up, and don't let anything stop you. If something is humanly possible and you're interested in it, then find a way to make it real.
Yeah, and in my career, I have so many times been blindsided by my own ignorance. And you know, I can remember the consumer Pong, where we took it to the toy fair and sold zero, because
Really?
toy stores didn't believe they could sell anything that cost more than $29. If
Mm.
we would have never launched the the Atari Pong home game if it hadn't been for Sears. And
Really?
when the buyer came, we my manufacturing guy thought, well, how many can we do? This was in like late February, early March. How many can we produce for Christmas? We thought about 25,000. He gave us an order for 150,000.
Whoa.
And and all of a sudden you get an order and you say, well, how would we do this? And by November 15th of that year, we had built 180,000 consumer Pongs and sold every one of them.
Wow. Wow. And so
So,
a lot of people might have just quit after the game stores said, oh no, we can't. Yeah, we can't sell it. It's too.
yeah,
Wow.
but I think but the whole idea of the flexibility of the reality versus what the constraints that your brain puts on things was kind of it was a lesson to me to say, hey, there are a lot of ways you can do things. You just have
I
to.
love that yeah, that you're making that point, Nolan, because I think the majority of people think Nolan Bushnell, like, brilliant, did it all easy for him. He just, it all just like smooth sailing. Look at the industry as a result of what Nolan initially did. And I feel like you were equally as frank in the book about the, what works and what doesn't work. And I think it's really beneficial for young people to hear from someone like you that it didn't go smoothly in the beginning. There were struggles, and a lot of people might have just given up at that point. And
Yeah,
that's, go ahead.
and that's why I really value what I call grit. You know, snowflakes need not apply to work for me. I want people who with a real thick skin and are mean and relentless. Relentlessness is really a superpower.
It's true. I could drop the mean, but relentless, I agree with.
that's that's true. I mean, you and I have the the primary no a-hole rules in our
Right.
business.
Exactly. And so far we are 100%. We have an amazing team of people, and just the process of working on the book really did introduce the company, right? And the book has been a real benefit to everyone joining the company, because we lay out in that book everything that we intend to do. It may not all happen initially, but one stage
Yeah.
after another, as we go through this, the 10-year plan is totally changed the way we're educating children, completely readdress it.
And we're unapologetic about it being a manifesto,
Exactly.
and you know, hopefully it's going to be more important than Mein Kampf.
Right. Let's hope so. But I think, one of the first reactions I got was from someone who got a pre-release of the book, and she was an educator years ago, hasn't been in education for quite some time, maybe 30 years. But she took a little offense to the fact that we were so hard on traditional education. And I was really braced for more of that, because it was one of the early. And the truth is, I have not heard a single complaint from anyone yet about the book. We've had
Hooray!
such interesting responses. And I think of people like Ted Kahn, who reached out, and he is just so excited about what it is we're trying to do. And the board, like the people who have joined our board, who are just amazing. And I think we do need to have each of them come on individually and talk, so that the
I would like
public
that
gets to know who they are
because
too. But
and each has kind of a unique view of things that I think that diversity of opinion and skill set would be an important message.
Absolutely. And an important message at this time. Like what we're trying to do is create an environment where instead of saying, why are they doing that? You say, why are they doing that? Like a curiosity instead
Yeah.
of a judgment. Really just, I don't need everyone in my world to think the way I think. I need to understand the way people think to make my world better and their world better. And listening to each other is a big part of that.
Well, the thing that I think may be our biggest change is, unbeknownst to a lot of people who really haven't thought about it, in our school system, it's built around competition between students. Like ABCD is competition. Some people are winners, they get A's. Some people are losers, they get D's. And when I think that competition for what you know is totally inappropriate. And so when you have a bedrock construct that is laced throughout everything educational that is wrong, what do we do about that? I mean, I, it's kind of one of those things where we're really trying to dynamite a couple of the foundational principles of how schools are constructed, and
Exactly.
the whole idea of no grades, no grades, no tests, no homework. That's kind of revolutionary.
It is. It is. And it scares a lot of people. But I think when they really listen, or if they read the book, if they talk to us, I think that they get the idea. Like that we're really trying to take the competitive edge out of school, because that's not what school should be. That's where sports comes in. School should be about
Yeah.
communal learning. These students are together. They don't all have to be the same age in the room. They just have to be engaged in their education, and batching by topics rather than by age would be one of our preferences, I think. And having
And
older,
the school system that really allows you to deep dive on what you're interested in. It's shown, Finland constantly scores at the top of academic performance.
yeah, individualized learning is really now that the technology exists for that, it really should be the thread that we all follow. And that's, again, that's the book. I just want to finish by saying, writing that book with you during that first year of the pandemic was probably one of my favorite experiences of the last decade, just because it pushed me to consider things that I hadn't considered. I'm also trained in the traditional educational style, so there were ideas there that I really had to work on and do some research and figure out. And my conclusion, clearly, I'm now not just a board member with you. I am the co-founder and CEO with you, and it's because I so believe in what we're trying to do, and I think that it matters.
Well, thank you. It's, you know, I never ever thought that I was going to be an author. You sometime I'll tell the whole story of how that came to be, which was another happy accident. Um, and I really think my life has been a collection of happy accidents, and so be willing to let the bluebird of happiness land on your left shoulder.
And I am really happy to be part of this most recent happy accident with you. So It's been it's been great, and I hope that everyone who's listening will buy the book and read the book and share the book, because it's not just a read, it is a mission. It is a manifesto. We have a big job ahead of
Yeah,
us, and we,
and in fact, your assignment is to buy 10 books and give them away. You know, one is insufficient. You know, if you're going to be a true devotee and life changer, at least 10.
they'll make great Christmas presents, Hanukkah presents. They're just a very good offer. All right, thank you
Exactly.
everybody for being with us. Thanks, Nolan.
Be good.